this was a door to another world. And every once in a while in ethnographic literature, you'll read about places where people went through rocks. They went through to another world.
I find rock art exciting because, like any other kind of art, I can build my own interpretation into it. And sometimes I see something and my imagination just soars, and I begin to think that maybe that person was feeling this, or believed that, or was experiencing a certain thing. And it creates a very warm place in me to think that somebody is reaching out through generations and generations and talking to me.
Meaning in rock art is really difficult to express. What I usually say is that the only individual that truly knows what the rock art means is the individual that put it on the rock. Pictographs are painted art. They're painted onto the rock, the paint usually being made out of a natural mineral such as red ochre or yellow ochre or white diatomaceous earth, which is ground up and then mixed with some type of a medium such as animal fat, water, or some combination. And again, they are literally painted onto the rock. Petroglyph, on the other hand, is pecked or chiseled or scraped into the rock. Most of the rock art we have here are pecked into the rock.
In Modoc County, in northeastern California, the Pitt River and the Modoc people seem to prefer petroglyphs. That's not quite true around Tule Lake. You find a lot of pictographs there. That would be the Modoc region. And you do find pictographs, red and black and white paintings in the Bowles Creek area, but they're very unusual. It's mostly petroglyphs, abraded, pecked, and scratched into the rock.
If there was more painted rock art out here, it's probably long since decomposed, being the paint's made out of organic materials, the binding in it, the animal fat or the water. And just exposure to the elements would make painted art deteriorate a lot more rapidly than the pecked art. Petroglyphs and pictographs overlap in the same area in the lava beds where you do have this northeast painted style. One of the reasons why they're more common there is that they're in more protected environments. I think they've survived. I believe in areas like this, Bowles Creek, there probably were additional painted or pictograph sites out there. They've simply been so badly exposed to the elements that they've decomposed and faded through time.
Some rock art is simply gorgeous. It is a work of art. I think that beauty and an artistic beauty and an aesthetic sense were very important. Then I've seen sites in the Modoc region on Bowles Creek where the rock is simply rubbed. And there, the purpose seems to have been to interact with the art. There doesn't seem to be any concern with the aesthetics of the petroglyph.
I think rock art from any Indian group is primarily, above all things, it is an expression of an individual. It's like today we look at a Picasso or we look at a work of art, and more than try to define what it is, I think it's necessary for us to try to define what that person was and what they were feeling and what they were thinking.
Well, this is just an opinion. I'm sure not everybody did rock art, but for those who did, it was very important. It seems to be associated with the idea of power. Ruby Miles, the old Pitt River woman, told me that women obtain their power by dancing and that men go to the mountains. Now, Ruby has lived to be 90 years old, And this is because she danced for a long time. She obtained her power that way. If you think of it in these terms, the power that you obtain from the vision and transfer to the rocks can be very significant. This can carry you through your whole life and tone all of your endeavors. For people who have lives to live, they need power. They need to have good health. They need to be able to do things. And from the Native American perspective, it's very important to obtain this power. Some Native Americans would record their vision after their vision quest in the form of rock art. They would actually record what they experienced or saw in the vision. And so this would be a testament to a very significant event in their lives. Rock art produced by an Indian doctor, a medicine man, could be of significance to the entire community. Rock art that draws on the power of the winter solstice sunrise could contribute significantly to the events of the community over the course of a year. It could mean many things, but it all seems to revolve around that concept of power.
In one rock art site in Bowles Creek area, the same design appears to have been pecked on the rock 3 or 4 times, one above the other, just slightly away from it. And that could be where either an individual was practicing rock art, or what we've had a Native American tell us, it's where somebody was trying to acquire power there, and the first couple of designs pecked in the rock, the power didn't work, and so they had to redo it until it was done right, and they achieved whatever they were after. The location or setting is probably one of the primary important features of where rock art is going to be made. Selecting the appropriate location to, again, gain some type of power or luck, and again, having a vertical face that is smooth enough to be able to put a design on it.
Hey ane 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 yeah hey ane 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 hey ane.
Rock art can be roughly dated by the style and sometimes by what it's associated with, what artifacts are found associated with the site where the petroglyphs occur. And there are some archaeologists that are developing a technique through studying certain lichen and how rapidly they grow to date rock art. Other simple methods of getting a relative date is simply looking at the design. Is it very badly faded? Is it very clear and distinct? And if 2 designs are on the same panel and one is distinct, one is very faded, then again you assume the more distinct design is the more recent one, the faded one is the older one. Other than that, again, dating rock art is very, very hard. Designs could be 250 years old, or they could be 2,500 years old, and we really couldn't with any certainty say one date or the other.
Very little is actually known. We draw our ideas from the few ethnographic accounts. We can't even tell how old most rock art is, so we're really working in the dark.
Đu nụ tâm dậy chua ngầm đàn đu nụ tâm dậy chua ngầm đàn.
I think we have to be very careful with any interpretation we do of any art, you know, that comes from prehistory times. I think a lot of the rock art, I many times think of celestial kinds of things, and that's what I see a lot when I look at rock art. But once again, I think we have to be very, very careful with those interpretations. I think that the Indian people, the prehistory, the indigenous person of this country was very close to nature because their very survival was involved in it. Their theology, their religion, everything revolved around nature and their relationship to the earth itself. So I can't help but think that a lot of their rock art must relate, as their very lives did, you know, back to nature and back to the earth itself. Well, I remember the first time I visited Fern Cave. The cave itself is extraordinary because it's out in a very arid area, and then all of a sudden there is a sinkhole filled with ferns. And I remember my astonishment, and instantly I thought how those early Indians must have felt upon seeing, you know, Fern Cave. When I went down into the cave itself, it was I swear it was a soul experience to look up and to see those things and to know that hands that have long since passed and become of the earth themselves, that these hands of these people once created that rock art. I think art expresses many things, but I think it expresses so often our internal feelings of our own survival. And there's times I almost feel tears coming to my eyes because I know that they must have been done at a time that there was tremendous hardship and tremendous pain, and the rock art actually even reflects that to me at times.
Rock art is useful in archaeology in a couple of different ways. One is that it's actual expression of the individual, and it identifies part of their thinking processes, what they saw, what was important to them perhaps. It's also important in where you have representations of animals. It tells us what it is they're hunting out there. Some rock art designs may show a hunter with a bow or with a spear, and that can tell us something about their hunting technology.
When you talk to Native Americans today, most of them claim to know nothing about the rock art. And that's probably true. And then again, they may not want to discuss it. But I think because of the specific designs congregating in certain areas, yes, I think there was, it was like a language. It had meaning for all the people in that community.
Henno, 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 henno. Henno, 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 henno. Henno, 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 henno.
Rock art in the general public is always interesting in that some members of the general public will have no value to, it will be equated to graffiti like Joe Smith was here in 1969. Other members of the public will see it as very special, religious, sacred art, and will be very interested in protecting it or photographing it and recording it. Again, some individuals in the public today, it has no value to them. And part of it is because it is associated with Native Americans, and some people have that difficulty of basically respecting the Native Americans and their past and their history and heritage.
When I think about people vandalizing any kind of art, but of course especially rock art that's so very, very old and so very precious, I feel the people that do it are really tortured souls. There has to be something terribly askew and wrong inside for somebody to reach out and destroy the emotions, the experiences, the feelings that another human being has created. I was a ranger interpreter at the lava beds, and there were some instances of vandalism. And it was just such a sad thing. It was like, I guess, a surgeon might feel in an emergency room. You know, seeing somebody come in all battered and beat up. That's how I felt. When I see vandalism, I feel like I'm in an emergency room and that something very terrible has happened and something has been injured that should not have been injured.
Rock art preservation is a real problem. Many factors are involved. Part of it is education. Many people see rock art as something to add to, and they will carve their initials on it. This offends other people, and of course it does destroy the rock art. It mars the beauty of it. So education could help there. Of course, there are always those people who still want to spray their initials with glow green on the petroglyphs, and I don't think you can really do anything about that. You certainly can't be out there watching all this rock art all the time because it's usually in remote areas.
Well, I'm a great proponent, obviously, of the National Park Service, the Forest Service, all of those agencies who are dedicated to the preservation of what has been handed down to us through the generations. I think anything we can do to support what they do, anything we can do as individuals to add our voice and our resources to that kind of preservation is tremendously important. I don't think individuals are powerless. I think that each of us has a way of reaching out and trying to preserve the history, the rock art that has come down to us. I'll go a step further. I think really it's our responsibility. I think it's wonderful that my ancestors, the ancient Modocs, it chose to leave behind messages. Sometimes I don't always know what they mean, but I know they're there. And there's nothing else. Nothing else has survived like rock art. And so sometimes when I see rock art, I actually feel like way back there someplace, there's somebody looking at me, all these generations beyond them, and saying, we're here, we care, and you will go on.